but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past.
Hi guys, don't know what was going on there. I'm not sure whether anybody could hear us or anything, but there seemed to be a little fault on the software, but we're here. We were here on time, but never mind, gremlins in the system, we got there in the end. Welcome to NUFC Matters. It's Thursday, it's me, it's Supermac, and it's John Gibson taking your questions on Newcastle United. And we're celebrating a point, lads. We didn't expect it, but we got one, Malcolm. 2-2 draw against Tottenham. The results went our way. Brighton and obviously Fulham getting beat was very important for us, and gave us a little bit more breathing space, Mal.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Just turning to Fulham for a moment, I have to say they really blew it against Aston Villa. With Newcastle, I thought thoroughly deserved a point, certainly against Tottenham Hotspur, and it was achieved by going back to a solid, safe way of playing, using two wide men who have been stuck on the bench for ages. I thought both of them did ever so well, and they spread the pitch wide, made more space for everybody, and Newcastle just looked a completely different side. Instead of going for these ridiculous formations that leaves not only us off the field scratching our heads, but we can see the players on the field not understanding what the hell is going on, and therefore it just looks like total chaos. And all of a sudden we had a football team playing in black and white last weekend against Tottenham, and good for everybody. I thought a number played well. I've still got question marks, particularly on the right side of defence. Kraft and the skipper just inside of him. It's leaving me getting a bit irate at times with such bad defending. And also, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this in more detail a bit later on, what the hell was Kraft doing when he's 2 yards off the line, facing his own goal? The ball comes to his foot, and he tries to be clever. Just boot it as far as you can, get it out the stadium, if you can get it over the roof. But yeah, and to do it knowing that one of the very best goal-scoring strikers in Europe, if not the world, is bearing down on you. Come on. You know, and that just, for me, it's a complete lack of professionalism and a complete lack of understanding how to play the game. And it brought Spurs back in so quickly into the game. And I feared that it would become a runaway. But in all fairness, Newcastle, they sort of kept a hold of the whole situation, and then substitutions brought an equaliser, and good for work. He got there ever so well. He made a lot of ground up to get there and stick the ball into the net, and it shocked Tottenham, and I would have just liked to have seen a real push. Having got that equaliser, and see if Newcastle could have gone on and got the winner. But it wasn't to be. But a point is a point. I don't think any of us expected it. I certainly didn't.
No.
And it set everybody up nicely for Burnley. And if Newcastle win, they'll go, I think, a point within Burnley. Yes? Just a point behind them. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we'll look at that a little bit later on. John, I loved your piece in the Chronicle this week. The line that really stood out for me was, I'll just read the little paragraph. At a time when Steve Bruce has to look exceptionally closely at the body language of those who hold his future and that of Newcastle, in their grip, Almiron stands out like the lighthouse on St Mary's Island. What a great bit of journalism that is, John. That's why people love you. And that even made it onto the front. It even got a front page splash, mate. I was walking into W.H. Smith's on my daily walk, and there it was. Almiron stands out like St Mary's lighthouse. What a belter. I mean, good point. None of us predicted it. We all expected a defeat. Good point. Good solid point. Results went our way. Feel good factor, as much as we can get these days, was there in abundance at the weekend.
Yeah, without a shadow of doubt. And as Malcolm touched on, Steve, when he started there, it was all about team selection and going back to what we do well. Instead of just pussyfooting around, we got two wide players playing Murphy and Ritchie, who were absolutely outstanding. And I thought Sean Longstaff did exceptionally well as well. Those three players have been missing. You've seen more of Lord Lucan on the back of Shergar on Northumberland Street than I've seen of those three players for about 3 months. And then all of a sudden, there they are. And what do? They didn't let us down. And really, isn't it wonderful? They come riding to the rescue of Steve Bruce, who was the bloke that had ignored them over the last 2 to 3 months. And it made an awful big difference to the side, without a shadow of doubt. Murphy is a great crosser of the ball. He's trying phenomenally hard to get a contract here. Ritchie, we've talked about for ages. And we looked a different side. Now, what's going to be interesting is what Steve Bruce does now. Because remember, he talked about taking little steps towards survival, which is, he talked about getting 9 points from 9 games. You know, we're not winning. We've won 2 out of the last 21 games we've played, but we can get safe on little steps. And when you look at Newcastle at the moment, guys, that's the way we're attempting to do it. We've drawn 4 of our last 5 games, the big defeat being Brighton in the middle of that. Otherwise, we've got 4 draws from the last 5 games. We're trying to tippy-toe towards safety, and with the help of Fulham, who are really looking as though they could be blown it permanently, we could get that way. But I would just like us, having done what we did with Spurs and got a bit of a feel-good factor back amongst us and did some attacking, which we haven't done for a long while. We had more shots on goal, etc., than we've had in an eternity. I would like us to go with that attitude to Burnley, not to go and try to put up the shutters and get another one of our draws, because you'll get caught out sometimes. If you're going for a draw away from home, they'll break away in the 83rd minute and you lose by a single goal. Let us have a go, because Burnley are beatable. Let's have a go at them. I know we will be talking about them shortly, but the interesting thing, Joe Linton has had a terrific press after his performance against Spurs, which shows how high the bar is. I mean, you'd need a limbo dancer to get under that bar. It's the height of it. But he got a wonderful, press, and it was announced that, do we know a real massive fact that half of Joe Linton's goals for Newcastle United in the Premier League have come against Spurs? Well, of course they have, because he's only got 4 and 2 of them are going against Spurs. It was conveniently missed out that was only 4. And bless him, he was good in build-up. I will not take that away from him. He recycled the ball well on the header for the equaliser. But he also missed a couple of real sitters that might well have won the game for us. And unfortunately, his comparison was, it was unfortunate for him that comparison about centre forwards had Harry Kane on the other side of the field to compare him with, which was not good from his point of view. I had to have a chortle though, boys, because he played quite well, and he did, absolutely did. There was pundit actually suggesting to Jose Mourinho that he might like to sign Joe Linton for Spurs. I mean, we should be so lucky. I mean, we should be. They've only got Harry Kane and Bale and Lamella and but Joe Linton would definitely improve their front line. I mean, who on earth dreamt up that one? I mean, we were saying yes, please, of course. But there we go. Let's not nitpick. Joe Linton did ever so well. Kraft was absolutely desperate, and on the goal, as Malcolm said, was so frightening that it was untrue. But all in all, massive pluses. Let's build on it. Let's not make it just a one-off. Let's build on it and have a really dip at Burnley and bring back the feel-good factor. This weekend's huge, because on Friday night, on Friday night, if Fulham beat Wolves, we are in a relegation position when we kick off at Burnley. Alternatively, if Fulham lose to Wolves and the way they're playing at the moment, they well could, we'll have a position where we kick off at Burnley on Sunday, and if we win, we'll go 6 points above Fulham with a game in hand, almost home and host. So the difference on what could happen this weekend is absolutely enormous. Huge weekend.
Yeah, a huge weekend, Malcolm. Chris Marshall's keen on knowing what your view is on Joe Linton. My view, and bearing in mind, me and you have been quite critical of Joe Linton on this show over the years, and justly so. I thought he was good. I thought he did his best. He hit the heights like John said that he can hit. Took his goal well. Let's face it. Most of us probably could have scored that one, but it was a great ball in by Sean Longstaff.
Yes, it was.
What did you make of Joe Linton's performance?
It was better than his past games, which have been utterly appalling. So it's not difficult to be better, is it? Some weeks ago, because I do stats in my head as I watch a football match. And I just watching Joe Linton. I thought he keeps losing the ball. So I want to find out what the percentage was of him losing the ball. And so one particular game, I sat down and I counted all the way through the 90-odd minutes, and Joe Linton, every 3 times he got the ball, he lost it twice. Now, if somebody were doing that playing for North Shields, they'd not only be out of the side, they'd be out of the club. It's not good enough for that level that North Shields play in. It wasn't good enough when I was playing for Tunbridge back in the 60s in the Southern League. Here we are in the top division in this country, and we are putting up with somebody who loses the ball twice every 3 times they get it. And it wasn't a great deal different last Sunday. It's just that he scored to overshadow all the times that he lost possession. The guy, I keep watching him, and he's always so upright, which tells me he's got a very high centre of gravity, which means that he's not an athletic kind of person. He's going to get knocked over easily and what have you. He's not going to survive. I don't care what he does, what happens. He is not going to survive in this division, and he is only going to bring Newcastle United failure if they continue with him. And okay, so he scored on Sunday. about time. And instead of him overly celebrating, he should have been saying to the press, "Well, I owe everybody that one from April last year. You know, not April this year, and I'll do everything I can to try and catch up." We're not hearing that. He doesn't think like a goal scoring forward. He doesn't even think like a forward, and it must be so frustrating, seriously frustrating for the players around him. And I just wonder what went through Sean Longstaff's head when Sean, he's got the ball in the penalty area. He can't quite get a shot on himself, but there is Joe Linton facing the goal with only the keeper to beat. And Sean Longstaff knocked him a ball which was absolutely superb. He didn't have to control it. All he had to do was just get his foot to it and knock it past the goalkeeper, which he did. Well done to him for that. But I wonder what was in Sean Longstaff's thinking. Oh, dare I give it to him? Should I have a shot myself? You know, and in the end, yes, okay, he gave it to him. What we need to see from Joe Linton is that all of the time. He should be getting into those positions 3 or 4 times every half, not 3 or 4 times in a season, but every half of every match. And I'm not one to go overboard for a single goal, for a single good game. I want to see absolute consistency from the man, and I don't think we're going to get it, but I'll give him a chance.
Yeah, fair enough. Trey and Son says Fulham look more mentally weak than we do. They collapsed like a pack of cards after conceding, heads bowed on and off the pitch. Surely we should be more confident of our fate now. You mentioned that to me off air, Mal, before we came on. Fulham did collapse a little bit, and
sorry, Steve, I was going to say, and as much as anything, I think it was in the manner in which they gave away the first goal. You know, there was one of the 2 centre halves on the ball, and he miscontrols it, and it rolls away, and an Aston Villa player's on it, boom, down he goes, and a goal comes from it. And Fulham never recovered after that, just didn't recover. And it just goes to show you can't make those stupid mistakes in matches at the back when you're in the position of Fulham and Newcastle. So Newcastle back line, please take note of that. You can't make mistakes. Kraft did. Stupidity, utter stupidity in not clearing that ball 2 yards from the goal line, and he wants to be clever.
The stroll through the midfield, Malcolm. I mean, if you watch it back, Shelvey just let him stroll through the middle and then hold the man over and dumped him on his backside. It was too little, too late. Do that before he gets past you.
Yeah, I had major question marks over Shelvey. It was I don't know what had been going on before the game, but Shelvey just came out as if he was in a shell, and he wasn't wanting to sort of dictate the pace and dictate the game as he normally does, and get the game playing in the way that he wanted it. And I thought he took very much a back seat, and at times wasn't interested in getting involved. And so when he needed to chase, he didn't do it. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Steve, that the fault was there. But that's what defenders are for. That when somebody in front of them has made a mistake, it's up to a defender to sort the problem out in the simplest possible way, not in a clever way, not in a glory-seeking way, with just utter simplicity. Get it sorted. Get the ball over row Z in the stand. And the job's done.
Yeah, John, I mean, it was great to see Matt Ritchie back in a black and white shirt. The effort he puts in, you know, I've often said on the show, 7 out of 10. Do you think the international break gave Steve Bruce and Graham Jones and the other coaches time to sit down, talk and analyse things and maybe he's put a few of these, you know, reported dressing room rifts to bed? Because it certainly looked more united, and having Sean Longstaff and Ritchie back in the team was refreshing and great to see. And maybe was that something to do you think maybe something was said, you know, that they had a little bit of a sit down in that international break?
I certainly hope so. I think the greatest thing that produced the different performance against Spurs was Brighton. It just happened to be the international break. But if anything was going to concentrate minds, and I'm talking now about Bruce and his coaching staff, it was Brighton. Not just the defeat, but the manner of the defeat. When it was obvious the players either were not playing for the management team or were so confused about tactics they didn't know what was happening. And I think there was a sudden realization of that behind the scenes, a feeling that we have got to put any little petty squabbles or petty chips on the shoulder to one side and go back to picking our best side, which is why we got Murphy and why we got Ritchie and why we got Sean Longstaff, and going back to a basic way of playing. And I think that break allowed people to think about it all. To a great extent, there was a lot of players away during that fortnight international break, so you can't do certain things tactically. But I don't know that it was so much about tactics. It was more about a realization that we've got to pick our best players, we've got to stop messing about, and we've got to get it going. Now, to a great extent, it was obvious that things had been stuck in Steve Bruce's mind by his team selection. I said before the game, if you remember, boys, that for me, his team selection and the attitude of the players on the pitch would tell me if we had, I said last week, any chance in the next 8 games or not. Now, the team selection was right and the attitude on the pitch was right. So I think we have got a chance. But the question that people will be asking is, I think it had a lot to do with the team selection, the bringing back of those players that have been forced now. And then it had a lot to do with the attitude of the players that went out there, whether they were more clear-cut on tactics or whatever. But the question remains, did the players play for Steve Bruce and the coaches, or did they play for themselves against Spurs? The answer doesn't matter. If they played for themselves, that's great. Keep doing it. I mean, I wrote before that game, if you don't want to play for the tactics, if you don't want to play for the manager, if you don't want to play for Mike Ashley, play for your flipping selves. Play for your own pride and your own future next season, that it's in the Premier League and not in the Championship. So I think there was a significant shift, because we had a fortnight to stew about the worst performance ever at Brighton. There was a significant shift both in team selection and in player attitude. And I think that made an awful lot of difference, and we saw what that difference is. But, you know, it makes you sit and wonder, see, what performance do we see at Burnley? Do we see the team that played at Brighton or the team that played at Spurs? In terms of attitude, I'm talking about, and not in terms of team selection, because that will tell us an awful lot about how things are going. And we have a real chance. And we said it last week. The reason we've got such a good chance is as much about Fulham gifting us the opportunity as it is about us taking it. But Burnley, you know, there's 3 matches left where Newcastle can target and say, this will get us safety. and that is Burnley, Sheffield United, and Fulham on the last day, because they might be demoralised by the time the players Fulham.
Yeah.
They might even be down, as Sheffield United could be down on the second last game. They're the 3 games we can target and not be surprised, like we were surprised with a point against Spurs. We should, and this is one on Saturday, on Sunday. Please do not waste it like we wasted it when we went to West Brom, and we wasted it when we went to Sheffield United, etc. Let us not waste it, and let us be more ambitious than go to Burnley for a point. Let's go to Burnley for 3 points.
But isn't that, just to carry on a little bit further on that, John? But did you not feel that the players have looked at the team sheet and said, that's the team that can play well for us, so let's give it a real go? And finally, and I just hope that Steve Bruce takes note and has taken note of what happened against Spurs, that the players had a belief in the way that they were playing, in the way that they were set up. And they haven't had that when Fraser was playing centre forward and others were all over the place. You know, the players are just, oh, for heaven's sake, it's all so ridiculously complicated and weakened at the same time. That they don't know how to put it right. But they were so much more organised. It was a simple 4-4-2. And
you're right, Malcolm. You're right, mate. You're right.
And it keeps players organised. Sorry, John.
Not at all, mate. And you're absolutely right. And the interesting thing, when I looked at that side, the only weakness, and it wasn't Joe Linton because he had a good game. The only weakness in that side that I would look to really change is Kraft. Is a right-sided central 3. No, thank you. Absolutely no chance. Bearing in mind that front, at the front, we've got San Maximum, who would be ready to start at Burnley if we want to start him after a couple of sub-appearances. And we've got Callum Wilson, who will probably at least make the bench at Burnley. So you've got 2 to look at up front, whether that's with Gale position being under pressure, although he looked sprightly initially. The one doubt that we had left in the team, for me, is Kraft. And I really believe because Dummett is essentially left-sided and because Kieran Clark's essentially left-sided, we've got a problem there of being able to spread those 2 across the 3. What we need and what we've been missing hugely recently, bearing in mind we can't have Shaw, is Fernandez. We need him fit again to play right side of the 3 at the back in place of Kraft. If we're able to do that, then the team looks very compact and has a real chance. But we need Fernandez to be available for Kraft.
Yep, okay. Big shout out to our sponsors tonight. As always, I want to thank Spider VPN, who are with us again this month for your internet security. Also a big shout out to John from qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wall's End, and to Jab Signature, who make our posters and flyers. And a special welcome to a new sponsor for this month. It is Arcot Interiors, and they do kitchens, Newcastle, Whitley Bay, and you can contact them on their number there, 0191 265 8663. Enquiries at arcot.org.uk or their website arcotinteriors.com. So welcome aboard. They're with us for the next month. Big thank you to them. Let's talk about this, lads. And this was announced today. The Chronicle has been fully behind it. 1892 pledge. This club is our club, and for information on this, there is the website 1892pledge.co.uk. Malcolm, John, I did send you an email this morning. I have a little look at it. I'll come to you first, Malcolm. I know you've had a chance to look a little bit at it. The idea being that supporters pledge as much as they can afford, either in a lump sum or in a monthly payment, and That money goes into the trust account, which is overseen by trustees. They've been named today as Warren Barton, obviously former Newcastle player, Ian Mearns, the MP for Gateshead, and George Culkin, the journalist who covers the Newcastle beat. And that money will go into an account. The idea being that if they can raise enough money, they will then go to either the prospective new buyers and offer the opportunity to put the money into the club in exchange for some kind of position on the board, if you like, a fan's position on the board. If they don't hit the target which they would need for that particular deal, then the money is all given to local charity, and the local charities that the money goes to is decided by the trustees. So that's where we're at with this. What's your first impression of that, Malcolm? We've seen things mooted like this before. We had the War Fund campaign, which of course came to nothing. It was rounded upon by supporters, and a lot of fans were criticised for it. And all of that money went back to those who pledged the money. We did, of course, as well, if we go further back, have the ill-fated share scheme that was launched at the club, where people were often asked to put their money where their mouth was and buy shares in the club, and again really fell flat on its face. So what makes this different? Do you think it can succeed? Do you agree with the idea and the principle?
I don't, to be honest, because I just don't see what difference it can make for the benefit of Newcastle United as a football club and as a Premiership club. When I was manager of Fulham back in the 80s, there was a quite similar thing that was done, and it was just a distraction away from the real business of creating a successful football club. I think they're looking at 1% overall. What difference is it going to make? What difference is it really going to make? And it is say a 52% share owner going to listen to a number of voices that have got 1%? I can't see it. I really cannot see it at all. And and for the people actually running the football club, I can only see, for them it will just be an irritation, and I can't see it being anything else. It's a nice thing. For supporters to sort of be involved, but they're not going to really make any difference at 1%. I really can't see it. Maybe you can, John, but I just cannot see it for the life of me.
John, come to you. Obviously, the Chronicle have backed it. Mark Douglas is championing this online, and I've watched with interest. I put a post up on Twitter and asking people what their general opinion was, and got to say a lot of it was quite positive. The feedback I really got from supporters was, well, at least they're trying to do something. And if you want to put your money in, put your money in. If you don't, then don't. But don't criticise it, and let's just see what happens. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's an attempt really just to have a voice at the club which the fans haven't had. But what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the theory of it is brilliant. In terms of the theory of it, yes, I take totally what Malcolm says aboard in the realistic world. The reason why the theory is brilliant is because, let's be truthful, the club, in any case, forgetting about shares, is all about fans. We are the people that matter in a football club because we're there from the day we're born till the day we die. Owners pass through, players pass through, everybody passes through. We do not. We stay put, and we are the supporters. Now, if supporters were able to act as the policeman, if you like, by having a foot in the door, by knowing what's going on, by being able to talk about it openly to other fans, etc., then it will be a job done. funnily enough, I was part of the setup you mentioned, Steve, which is the Magpie Group, when they initially tried to sell shares. When Sir John Hall was taken over, he wasn't taken over to have the club for himself. That happened because he took over the club and then he couldn't get his share issue going with fans. So he had to take over the club for himself because he was already committed to it, and did not work well in terms of the entertainers. But the share issue was not taken up at that stage. I think this time, because it is on a much less scale in terms of the outlay of each individual, that there will be a good take-up from the fans, and they will want to have something. And it because they've had Ashley for 14 years, that's why they will want to support this, because they feel they've been ignored for those 14 years more than ever before, and they want that to stop. The great Achilles heel, which Malcolm has talked about and is right, is that, and the NUST have totally admitted this because they're doing it up front with no false promises, etc., etc. They cannot force anything themselves. They cannot do anything themselves. They've got to rely on the goodwill of the owner, be that Ashley, be that the new people coming into the club, that will allow this to happen. They can't go with 3 million quid and say, we want to buy 1% of Newcastle. And Newcastle are so desperate for money, they'll take it. Because in terms of Newcastle buying players, they spent £40 million on Joe Linton, for God's sake. So then they know how to waste money, all right. So the 3 mil would not make a difference there. Maybe there would be a good chance, Steve, if the new owners of the club happen to be the current consortium with Amanda Stavely in, etc., etc., they might just want fans on side and give them 1%, because 1% will not at all impact on the decisions the club make, because 49% won't impact it if you own 51%. But therefore, they may well look to have the fans on board. I think the theory is brilliant. I wish them every luck possible. My heart is wholly with them. I think they realise on what they've said, because they're so open and truthful about it, that it is really shooting for the stars. But we have a very big saying up here that we live by as Geordies, and that is shy Ben's getting out. So good luck to you, boys.
Yeah, look, I agree. A lot of people asking about the consortium. It's my understanding, and reading Liam Kennedy's latest tweet about 10 minutes ago, my understanding seems to be correct that PCP and Amanda Stavely, etc., don't have an opinion about this. So that will be interesting. I think the money that goes into this. Look, if it goes to charity, fantastic, great idea, and that's where it'll go. If it doesn't work out, I think this would be beneficial if Newcastle are relegated and then continue to struggle like Sunderland did when they went down again. I think this kind of scheme suddenly comes into play then. If you find that the club devalues, you find that we end up in a situation where we get another owner who comes in, but who isn't who was like the Sunderland owner that took them down to the third division, the old third division, and then suddenly the fans suddenly start backing the scheme, and you have a situation where they can have more power in the big picture with multi-billionaires now owning football clubs. I don't see how this will work with either Saudi money coming in or anything else. But look, you can't knock them for trying. They've tried it. I did have a conversation with Alex Hurst and Mark Corby, who's on the committee last week prior to them announcing this, so I was privy to their plans. I was on the NUST committee a few years ago when the idea was first mooted, so I've been aware of this for some time. Good luck to them, as you say, John. Fans will either back it or they'll hate it. I've seen a lot of people speaking out against it, but I've seen far more people supporting it, and good luck to them. Will I be putting money in? A lot of people asking me that. No, I won't. I won't be putting money in. I don't see the point of putting money in. Certainly not now. Hey, if later on things look as if they're progressing and it could do something, then why not? But why put money in now? For me, I'm not going to do that, and that's my personal choice.
Yeah, I understand that, Steve. Absolutely. And I just find this a strange time for this to even be mooted, because if the takeover happens, they're getting into bed while Ashley's the owner, and then just around the corner there are new owners about to come in.
I don't think Ashley will entertain this, Malcolm, at all. Mike Ashley's had clashes with the trust, and he won't entertain this at all. He'll laugh at it.
Yes, he will. Absolutely. And he would just see it as a complete non-runner, and he will treat it with complete contempt.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fans have tried this before. I just genuinely feel, I do feel as if it could all be a waste. But as I say, the money will go to charity if it doesn't work, and good luck to them. And they've got good names behind it. Look, Warren Barton, Ian Mearns, George Culkin, all men with great reputations, all men respected by the fan base. Alan Shearer's retweeted it today. Steve Howie's retweeted it today. They've all supported it on social media. Alan Shearer says, I'm in. I do know that they've spoken to Alan Shearer, and he said he would make some kind of donation. Great. Happy days. That's the kind of support that you need. And if that's the case, and it does end up just going to charity, then that's been wonderful. But look, let's see. It's one we'll watch with interest. We're hoping to get some of the guys on next week once all the PR and publicity dies down. We'll get them on. You can ask questions. I know they're doing a live podcast on some of the other shows. At chipping in and live broadcasting. We didn't really want to do that. We'll do something with them individually next week. But it'll be interesting. I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions. We'll see where they're at next week. I know that they'd raised about £6,000 after the first few hours. Great start. Maybe what they should have done was, essentially get maybe some big pledges in early doors, and then announce that they'd hit 100 grand after the first 12 hours. I'm teaching them how to suck eggs, but if they've got some big backers, maybe we'll see something like that. Maybe we'll see a big jump in the amount over the next 24, 48 hours. It'll be interesting. We'll watch it with interest. And,
why don't they come up with 300 million and do the deal with Ashley?
Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah, if we could get that. I've seen other people talk about it and say, well, I think the key is really it's transparency. And John said there is transparency. But I've also seen a lot of people getting confused as to what this is. This isn't them trying to take the club over. This is them getting their ducks in order, being organised, so that potentially if the club does drop like Sunderland, then the fan base is organised. I mean, John, you and I and Malcolm as well, we're fans of local non-league football. I've always said that if we did drop to the levels that Sunderland have got to, I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody try an FC Newcastle team, which I think would probably have more backing. If you still had the same owner, or you had a nightmare of an owner, I think people would just go and find something else to do. And Newcastle Blue Star, basically within spitting distance of the club, they've had a big resurgence. I mean, Lee Clark was there, Kenny Wharton, big names, and you just wonder, with the way things are going, that maybe those kind of clubs will end up with more following. And we've also hearing news today that there's a couple of EFL clubs very close to going out of business. So there's that as well. A lot of people will probably turn to non-league if clubs go out of business.
Yeah.
There was talk. There was talk when I owned Gateshead. There was a proposition put to me that we considered for a long time, that we were in the conference at the time, which is one division below. As you know, if you win promotion from the conference, you're in the Football League. And you were allowed to move your ground, but only a certain distance from the ground you occupied at the time. Because the International Stadium was not capable of pulling a lot of fans. It was big enough, but it was wrongly located for a lot of fans to support. The proposition that was put to me as the owner of the club was that should Gateshead relocate to the Falcons ground in Kingston Park, which would have been allowed by the conference at the time because it was only X number of miles away from the International Stadium where we were then. Should we relocate to there, play a season there, and then do the transform that happened in rugby league, who went from being Gosforth to Gosforth Newcastle to Newcastle Falcons, and should Gateshead go to the Kingston Park Stadium, play there as Gateshead, and then become Newcastle City, already playing black and white, become Newcastle City, and it would be a second Newcastle club, and the gates would treble because it's in the city of Newcastle, not the other side of the town. And who knows, we might go on into the Football League. And it was a tempting thought, and that sort of thing can be around and will be around forever as a secondary thing. And that would have been a very interesting theory to do. I had to consider the Gateshead fans and that as well, but there was a good reason why that might have worked, and then it would have been Newcastle City playing one league down from the Football League with a great chance of getting promoted. And then what would have happened? This wouldn't have been in any sort of challenge to Newcastle United, isn't that? Because that would be physically impossible. It would have probably become a subsidiary of Newcastle United, a feeder club of Newcastle United, if you like. And that was an interesting thought.
Yeah, no, definitely. Lots of people suggesting that Anton Deck, Sting, Mark Knopfler, Jimmy Nail, Eric Burden, Ridley Scott and John Gibson put some money in because they've all got some money between them. I added your name on the end of that, John.
Well, actually, it's funny you should say that, but we've got 200 million at the moment to buy 1%, but we're going for the 300 million to buy the whole club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Paul Gibson, I'm not sure what Paul Gibson's up to tonight, but he says he's watched a game on the field next to him the other day. He said it was a great. One of the mothers was shouting obscenities and another I spotted had a can of cider. Thanks for that in-depth match report, Paul. Watch out, Gibbo, he's up to your job. Burnley away on Sunday at noon. Newcastle travel down to Turf Moor, the happy place, as was mentioned on Anton Deck's Jungle Experience at the Castle earlier this year. And it is shown live on Sky Sports. Following a 3-1 win at St James's Park in October, of course, Newcastle are going in search of a second Premier League double of the season, having taken 6 points off the Toffees, Everton. Newcastle team news, obviously it's a little bit early at the moment. We'll wait for Steve Bruce's press conference. We know that Isaac Hayden and Shaw definitely miss out. It still remains to be seen whether the injuries that prevented Kieran Clark, Andy Carroll, Federico Fernandez and Ryan Fraser featuring last week in the draw against Tottenham have eased off, and whether they'll be involved in the squad. Callum Wilson, of course, is the name that everybody is hoping to see on the team sheet. Depends really how he's done over the last few days in full training to see whether he's had any reactions. They won't want to rush him back, that's for certain, because they'll be banking on him getting some goals before the end of the season to keep them up. As for Burnley, injury doubts for them over Robbie Brady and Eric Peters, Kevin Long and Ashley Barnes. Phil Bardsley should be available after missing their defeat at Southampton last week. He missed that game due to a bereavement. So, interesting game. The record of conceding 16 Premier League goals at home this season matches that of Chelsea for Burnley and is only bettered by Manchester City and Spurs. The referee is Anthony Taylor, and on VAR, thanks to Tom Dixon for sending this in, Stuart Atwell. Interesting fixture, this one. We've talked a little bit about it earlier on in the show. I guess the big one, Malcolm, is what are we going to do next week? What are we going to do on Sunday? Is there going to be wholesale changes? Is he going to be scared and go back to what he did, or do you think we've found a newfound confidence and he's going to stick with those players that got him the point against Spurs?
Yeah, he's got to stick with them. There is a change. I think you've got to leave Kraft out, and then decide whether you bring another right back in or you play three at the back or whatever. But what I would say is that Burnley, having had a really poor season, the one thing they do is they stick 100% effort in from every single one of their players. Even though they're not playing well, they really do put the effort in. Sean Dyche, I know Sean pretty well, and he's a taskmaster. He demands that they give everything that they've got, whether they're playing well or badly. And so Newcastle, they're going to really have to work their socks off just to contain that effort that's going to come from Burnley. And once they're matching on effort, then they can go and maybe start to play. And you have to take away games sort of in stages. So work your way into the game, work your way to just matching and maybe getting on top of the opposition. And it's all bit by bit by bit. And if a goal comes along during that time, great, because then you've got something to defend. And I really would love to see Newcastle stick a couple in the net, get a couple of goals up, and then we'll see a completely different side. Once you're ahead, you've got something to defend. You can see the end target that the game's offering you then. Whereas, and also the back four. Against Tottenham, the back four started to look so much more confident than they have been for weeks running into months. And it was because they knew that there were goals up front. And that it eases the situation for sides when there is the threat up ahead. And the back four of Newcastle, the thing that they must do is cut out silly mistakes. And against Burnley, you can't afford to make mistakes. That's one thing I would say, because they're alive. They just haven't been playing well at all, not been getting results. The back line isn't that fortress type back four that we've seen from Sean Dyche. So I think that if Newcastle, if they go out with the spirit and determination that they showed against Spurs, I don't see why they cannot work their way into the game and overtake and overrun Burnley and go on and get a win. I don't see why not. As long as they go out with that same attitude. And seriously, the only change I would make would be Kraft. And if I were to drop anybody else, in all honesty, despite his goal and despite you thinking that he played well, John, I would leave Joe Linton out maybe, and maybe play Andy Carroll up front. It's because it'll be a battle. It will be an absolute battle, and the person who loves a battle is Andy Carroll.
Yeah, interesting, John. What's your take on the lineup this weekend? What do you expect to see? What do you think you'll see? Because there tend to be this two different things when Steve Bruce is managing this team.
Yes, they do. I think they will stick with the same formation. I think it'll be a back five again, especially as it's an away game. And I think tactically it'll be the same formation. I'm desperate that we don't start with Kraft. If we can get Fernandez fit, it's got to be him. If not, we've still got to get rid of Kraft. Can we shuffle with 2 left-siders? Probably not. Will Manquillo go in there? Whatever, but we don't want Kraft in there. We want Fernandez in there. If there is to be a change anywhere else in the team, what I think we would see is that he might well decide the time is right to start with Saint Maximum, having gone on a couple of times as a sub. If that is the case, and I take what Malcolm was saying about Joe Linton will not be the one that goes out, having scored and played a half-decent game. And if you look at his record, Steve Bruce picks Joe Linton come what may. He either starts with him or puts him on as sub. I think there's only about 3 to 4 Premier League matches since Joe Linton come that he hasn't taken part in at all when fit. And I think you would possibly start St. Maximum up front with Joe Linton, Almiron just behind him, which would take Gale out of the side. That would be the only other change I can see. I don't think that he will start with Wilson and St. Maximum because that's a huge risk. And as you said, Steve, he needs to not push Wilson where he has a relapse and he's not available for the remaining games. I think he will probably go on as a sub. As far as the match itself is concerned, I remember in the old days when Sean Dyche started doing his wonderful things with Burnley against all the odds. He was nicknamed by the Burnley fans as the Ginger Mourinho. Well, my hope is that his defence will be as welcoming to Newcastle United as Jose's defence at Spurs was a week ago, because they were horrendous. We did great. But can you believe the 2 defence-minded coaches like Mourinho and Bruce had 2 defences that played the way that the 2 defences did last week? With Kraft at the back, we were a bundle of nerves at the back, and Spurs were absolutely diabolical at the back. I hope that the Ginger Mourinho's defence, which was a bit iffy at Southampton when they let 3 in after being 2-0 up, is as iffy this Sunday. The interesting stat that bothers me about Burnley, and I hope Newcastle realise it, and I'm certain they do, is that they are the best starters to a game in the Premier League. They have now scored 8 times in the first quarter of an hour of a match, which is the biggest number of goals in the first quarter of an hour in the whole of the Premier League. They've scored 8 times in the first quarter of an hour, and they did it at Southampton with a penalty from Chris Woods. Newcastle have to make certain that doesn't happen and then go at them. Yeah, the ball's going to come off bruised and battered on a stretcher. There's no question about that. This isn't a game for connoisseurs. This is a game where the hammer throwers launch it at our back and we've got to try to fight them back. I can't see a lot of neutrals saying to the missus, push back Sunday lunch because I want to sit in front of the telly and take in every second of the delights of Burnley v Newcastle United. This game's not got anything to do with the neutrals. Go away, do shopping, do something else. This is a game between us and them for survival. Don't you come and intrude on this. This is a game where the ball will go off on a stretcher and hopefully we win 2-1 or 1-0, but it will be that sort of game. And because they'll launch it like hammer throwers, I want Fernandez in at the back. I don't know if he's going to be fit. All of a sudden, having been on the bench and never called on, he wasn't fit enough or he was having there's talk that the coronavirus has had a great effect on him. But we need you, boy. If you can get out of bed and you can bend down far enough to put your boots on, we need you because we don't want to see Kraft. And by the way, can you tell me how he's keep playing for Sweden? I mean, how on earth is this boy keep playing for Sweden? But he manages to, but there we are. My belief is that Newcastle don't lose at Burnley. My hope is that Newcastle win at Burnley.
Okay, that's your prediction then, John. You're hoping for a win. Yeah. And Malcolm, what's your prediction?
I'm going to go for one each. I think it's going to be a tight old affair, and it'll be a bit of a bruising battle for both sides. Okay,
I just want you to say a happy birthday, lads, as well, because it's your nemesis. Dodo Bird was 66 yesterday. The guy who gave us those wonderful stories about Malcolm's shop and the night in Grays. So, Malcolm, any message for Dodo Bird?
Well, very happy birthday to you, and thanks for bringing us the memories. I thoroughly enjoyed them, Dodo. So have a great weekend, and I hope that Newcastle United give you 3 points for your birthday.
And Gibbo,
and if I could just say to Dodo, very, very happy birthday. Because of his experience with Malcolm's trousers from the shop all those years ago, I did pop down to Marks and Sparks this morning, and I've put a pair of nice slacks in the post to him. So expect the postman to be knocking on your door very shortly.
Brilliant stuff. I'm back tomorrow night. It's 5:30 with the three amigos, myself, Neil Mitchell and Steve Hasty. We'll be talking all things Newcastle United tomorrow night. I'm sure that the pledge scheme will get a good mention tomorrow as well. Don't forget, we've got a lot of shows coming up over the next few days as well. We will be doing Match Day Live, so tune in for that. But I'll see you 5:30 tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to seeing Malcolm and John next week. Take care, lads.
All right, Steve.
All the best, boys.
Let's all have a real good rousing weekend, eh?
Take care, lads.
Fingers
Bye-bye.
crossed, boys.
All the
Fingers
best.
crossed. Bye now.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back.